Hey folks, thank you everybody for coming out. This is an amazing turnout, and I saw the registration list. Like, we have some really impressive folks in the audience, so I'm looking forward to learning from all of you as well. So I think I'm preaching to the converted here that AI has changed everything. Everything. For Intercom, it's changed our business strategy, it's changed what we build, it's changed how we build, from like the way we structure our teams to how we work day to day. And we were chatting just before this that we're all moving so fast that actually we haven't, I don't think, take enough time to stop and compare notes with other folks doing the same thing and learn from each other. So that's why I'm really excited to chat to Marcel from Figma, and particularly on the how we will spend a bunch of our time is like how AI is changing how we do R&D, how builders do their jobs. So Marcel, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you. Marcel Weekes, VP of Engineering over at Figma, and very excited to be here with you and chat about all the changes. As you said, AI I know it is a trite phrase now, but it has turned everything over. So it is nice to take a break and just sort of check in with other people and see what their experiences are, what they've learned, and what we can leverage.
So at Intercom, we were pretty quick to realize how AI was going to totally disrupt our business, customer service. And within like a few days, we decided that we were going to go for a few days of the ChatGPT moment, decided we're going all in on AI, and very quickly realized that meant for us Fin, the AI agent for customer service, was like, this is going to disrupt customer service. So if it's going to happen. So it's regardless of who does it, it's going to happen. So we should be the people to do that. And like that realization has kind of driven all the change that has happened for us since, and it's been really successful for us. How did this kind of the AI revolution change things for Figma?
So I'd say we're probably a little bit earlier in our journey around AI, but for us it's been a delicate balance, frankly, when we started out. I heard someone earlier mentioning Figma and a diagram acquisition a couple of years ago. Yes, and that was something that happened right before one of our configs. So it's config 24, which was like May of 24. We launched our first AI offering, which was First Draft. It was a way for designers to sort of prompt into an initial draft. And we thought by signaling with the name First Draft, it was very clear this was not meant to replace designers in any way or to do their job for them. And the reaction was from the design community was not, they did not come running and cheering. There was a lot of resistance. And that was May of 24. Fast forward to this year, May of 25, and those same designers are like, where are you with AI? We need more of this, and the prompt to app and prompt to design, we need that. And it was really interesting just to see how in a year's time, our constituents had sort of like navigated this, which was, again, like designers were reluctant because if you think back to like May of 24, there are a lot of people talking about, is my work being used to train these LLMs, and how do I feel about that? Am I getting attribution? Am I getting compensated? And for that to have, I'm not going to say flip completely, there's still certainly like reasonable discussions to be had about that. But for an entire like community to be like, okay, now we're embracing it and running with it, that was, I think that was sort of, we were maybe a little bit ahead of our user base, and then we had to sort of backtrack and build trust with them to be able to move forward.
It is remarkable how fast things are changing there, right? Like that's like, we were talking about the idea that, I'm sure something has happened in the world of AI since the event has started tonight, where people in the audience are like, why are they talking about the new model from such and such that is totally going to change everything? And that's, the pace of change. I'm saying, like, I think one of the things for me is, as hard as you think you're going in AI, as fast as you think you're moving, as much as you think you're challenging assumptions about how you need to work, it's not enough. It's not enough. Like there's something else. There's somebody else who's moving even faster than you, which is speed. Maybe that's one angle of how is that the speed aspect of AI. How has that affected Figma?
Yeah, I think we felt because we were ahead of our user base a little bit, that we were moving at a deliberate pace, but we weren't pushing the bounds. But we felt we were like, okay, we're not out of step with our user base, and it's very clear that for established businesses, AI can be an existential threat. And that phrase gets used way too often, all the time. But if you're using it in 2025 and you're talking about AI, it is probably the case. From, as you said, from business model to product that's being shipped to how you yourselves are working, it is really an existential threat. And I think it was, and for everyone I've talked to, you mentioned it was like a few days to make this pivot to Fin. Everyone I've talked to, there tends to be a weekend where people are not at work and they go for a walk and they come back and they're like, all right, I've internalized this, we are changing and everything's going differently. And I think I could point to where we had a moment like that internally. And we decided that a product that we've been working on, Make, which we've got several people here who can demo later about this, Make was going to be something where we were going to go all in and we were going to play to win in this prompt to design and prompt to app space. We felt like we had as much of a right to win this, if not more, than anyone else. We had design systems that people had invested years in and they wanted to leverage, and we wanted to meet the moment there and really be there for our customers. And it's, you talk about large organizations shifting, and depending on sort of your perspective, Figma at like a 1,600 person company, it was not like maybe the largest company in the world, but it was still like a pretty hard pivot across the board. And that's not without challenges for sure, but we pivoted really quickly for that.
Yeah, you talked earlier about when we were chatting before about the idea of like no priors, right? You got to challenge all your assumptions. It's so easy this is a cliche at this point, but it's so easy for an incumbent company to convince themselves that like, oh yeah, but this aspect, this like structural foundation of our business, that's not going to change. That's not different in this world, because they need to believe that, because if that's not true, they're going to have to fundamentally change a lot about their business and what they do. By the way, we're going to do about 30 minutes of us just having a chat like this and like learning from each other, and then we'll do Q&A. So start thinking about the kind of questions, the things that we aren't talking about that you want to hear from us. So so you talked about Make. What are the other things that Figma is working on now, off the back of the you're not getting it pulled from your community rather than pushing to them?
Yeah, so we'd had sort of a broad philosophy called a North Star, if you're being grandiose, about how we approached AI. And the thought here was really that AI was both going to raise the ceiling and lower the floor for designers in our user base. And by raise the ceiling, we meant they would be able to do more. Like power users would really be able to work much faster, do more, really express themselves even more creatively. And that lowering the floor would make these products more accessible to a broader audience. And I think that held true. It holds true. But when you internalize that and actually like play it out, it has second order effects and third order effects that are, I think, at first difficult to anticipate. And for us, one of those, which now in hindsight is relatively straightforward, is that everyone becomes a builder of some sort, a maker of some sort. And I think we were very fortunate at Figma in that this notion of a maker is it's internalized into our sort of company. It's like one of the questions we ask new employees, like, what makes you a maker? And it'd been there for years, but now we were turning around and like realizing everyone who uses Figma products and touches those products is a maker of some sort. Now, they may not all feel really comfortable using the color picker or using a shape cutter or something, or different tools within Figma design, but we have a suite of products, a platform that allows different people to engage in different ways and like really get into this and express their desires and what they're trying to build out. So for us, it really meant meeting people at different levels wherever they were and allowing them to participate in the design process.
So it isn't just going to mean you can fire half of your designers? That isn't the outcome? No?
Yeah, I certainly am not going to take credit for this, but I think, and I don't think Aaron Levy's the first to say it from Box, but if you're approaching AI and sort of thinking, all right, this is a cost reduction system, you are doing it all wrong, because it's the amount of work that we mean to do grows as you start taking on more and more. And our designers, I think what we'd really like to do, because we recognize everyone as builders and makers, is get designers to move from sort of, if designers only have like one conversation with development during the day, we don't want that to be about pixel policing. We want that to be like something higher order. And in order to enable that, we've got to allow designers to use these same tools to affect the change they want. So there's no reason why you, as a designer, shouldn't be able to submit a PR to actually fix that pixel policing yourself. Even if you may not be writing the code for it, now you may not have to.
Yeah, like the idea that like, hey, this isn't just about doing the same thing that you've always done more efficiently. It actually fundamentally changes the dynamics. Like the things that I think we took for granted as being essential domain complexity, like, hey, only an engineer can do this work, a designer can't do this work, that goes away, and it unlocks all this creativity and impact and value generation from other people. It's like for Fin, one of the ones for us is like, in the customer service world, there's a bunch of assumptions that people have around that just feel like essential parts of the domain. Like, hey, there's tiered support. There's like tier 1 support, tier 2 support, tier 3 support, and you know, it turns out the only reason we have all of that is, you know, scarcity of intelligence, scarcity of the ability to have people who can, you know, you can't afford to have every person skilled enough to be a, you know, tier 3 support person answer every, you know, individual support request. But with AI, you can, right? With AI, you can give every person fundamentally, you know, the best possible customer service, and the infinitely patient, infinitely flexible, and all these assumptions. It turns out, like, whenever you know, AI is creating this like abundance of intelligence that helps, it just empowers everybody to do more and create more with this stuff, which is fascinating. Okay, we talked about building AI product. We're going to spend most of our time probably talking about how this has changed how we work. But I'm interested in, as you have started building AI products, it's a cliche now again, I think I'm preaching to the choir in this room, that a prototype is really easy. Actually, you know, shipping AI product that is deeply valuable is really hard. How's that going for you? What have been your lessons or learnings from building AI products over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about Figma, I don't think we're unique in this way, but it is interesting, is that, like many tech companies, we are using AI in a way we weren't a couple of years ago ourselves internally. And we are building AI into the products that we ship, but we are also building tools for people who build products. And they're looking at us to see, like, what is the standard for, what is the appropriate metaphor to use here, the appropriate design language to lean into. So that's something, like, on the one hand, that's one aspect that we pay special attention to, and it means we are constantly trying, like, every AI tool out there, and looking at it and critiquing it and saying, like, okay, what is this interface good for? What is a better interface for something else? And then I think another part of what's changed for us internally is, as I mentioned, sort of like the builders and everyone being a builder, people doing different things. This notion that so much software that there's going to be like some people say 10x, 100x, a lot more software will get built as a result of sort of having lowered the floor to doing this. And there becomes a question of, like, well, what will now be the differentiator? What will allow something to stand out? And the term I often hear is craft. Like, people say, if you can lean into craft, that'll do it. I think craft is an appropriately vague word, that you could use that and it makes sense. My personal take on this is that you mentioned sort of the domain knowledge and how that played into this. And another angle, like, you as a person who has actual deep domain knowledge of the problem, that is now the differentiator. Like, it is not necessarily, like, when people talk about taste, they're not necessarily talking about colors, typography, rounded corners. They're really talking about, like, does this product just meet me and do what I want, and are the ergonomics of using it, like, really good? And I think this is something we've had to pay attention to as we build tools for others, is how do we like really leverage our knowledge and understanding and domain knowledge of what it means to build to allow other people to build more quickly. And it's been this, like, weird second order effect for us.
Yeah, I love that. Like, what is the actual? We're big fans of like the jobs to be done framework in Intercom. Like, what is the essence of the job you're doing? And like, there's these accidental properties of like pixels and all this kind of stuff, right? But in reality, like design is like what is the behavior of this thing? What should it be? What is like the best like how can we get extract from the clay what the right thing is here? It's like it's a deep. It's a deep problem that if you have expertise in this, you're going to help people do this way better.
Yeah, it's actually led us back to like asking the question of what is design again. Like you actually start asking that problem or asking that question again. And like many tech companies in San Francisco, we've got libraries of books that are just like hanging around. And I was in the office the other day, and I was about to take a flight, and I grabbed I'm sure you've all seen the yellow design book, The Design of Everyday Things. It's the one with the teapot that has the handle on the wrong side, so it's unusable. I grabbed it for the flight, and I was like, there's enough in here that I need to like reread this. I must have read that 10 years ago, but like now it's once again coming back to what is design.
Yeah, it's back to like the idea of like things we took for granted as being like, oh, it's just part of the job. It's like, no, maybe it isn't. Maybe it's just like that's like accidental. Like what is the job? Let's work it out. Like again, this is not a pitch for our products or anything, but the analogy with Fin is you think of Fin as like it's answering customer service questions, right? That's what get a question in, it gives an answer. That's the job right now. Like the job of customer service is deeper than that, right? Like it's you gotta really deeply understand the business. You gotta understand the customer's problem. You gotta be able to work out how do you like work with the customer to properly extract the problem. You gotta do things like, hey, whenever you don't know the answer, like what does a human do, right? A human would go ask internally, ask on Slack, like, hey, I'm getting a lot of questions about refunds in Germany. Are we allowed to do refunds in Germany? And then internalize that. It's like the job of customer service is much bigger than like what it looks like. Maybe like the equivalent for us of like the pixels thing is answering questions. The analogy, I think there's useful analogies in other companies. Really like Devon, for example. Like Devon is we use all of the tools in Intercom. We use Cursor and Claude Code. Yeah, it's a lot of use. I really like the framing of Devon as being it's not a coding agent. It's not about writing code. They're trying to do the job of software engineering. Like what is software engineering? And they're like trying to deeply tackle with that idea of a software engineer needs to work with other people, deeply understand the problem, manage complexity. Like this is not just you need to ship the code and then see did it do what you expected it to do. Like all those, like it's a deeper problem than the superficial thing of like, hey, designing UI design, like literally color picking, than it seems at first blush.
Sorry, there's one other thing. Yeah. One other part of the question you asked that I want to make sure I answer is. I think that this notion of hill climbing is, it's a hill for a reason. It's like actually like hard and just keep I wouldn't say slog. You keep at it, you keep climbing. And that's been something that in terms of like how we have changed how we work, I mean, I'm sure like many of you, it's the notion of writing an eval as like being the spec is something that is front and center. Being willing, like making your internal infrastructure resilient to not just outages and changes, but also like how do we test this model really quickly? I know Maria and a few others spent the weekend upgrading to the latest Sonnet model, and they were only able to do that because, well, one, they worked over the weekend, but also two, they had the infrastructure and tooling in place. And I think those are the type of things that certainly as product engineers, I think we had kind of like, we'll get to that when we get to that in the past, and now it is like that's table stakes. That needs to be there up front to allow you to be able to move quickly.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I want to pick up from that. One is like the analogy holds so strongly for me of like the whole industry. It feels like the early web, right? It feels like all things are possible. It's moving so fast. Nobody yet really knows what the right things to do are, and we're having to relearn a bunch of lessons around like operational excellence in this world. Like we're now multi-cloud for the first time. We need to be able to get the reliability. It's like that's a small thing, but it's like this fractal to actually get reliable, high quality products is like a deep like fractal problem. The idea of like having to work to upgrade Sonnet 4.5. Like another thing that it blows my mind. Like a year ago, even not that long ago. Some folks in our space, for example, in customer service, we're still letting you There were people who were letting you pick the model. They're like, hey, our customer service tool is going to do whatever, and then you tell us which model you want to use, or give us your API key for whatever LLM you want to use. Like, what? Like, these things are not fungible. These things are not interchangeable. Like, I think the analogy of moving from like Claude 4.1 to Sonnet 4.1 to Sonnet 4.5 is like, it's like moving from like a major version of a programming language, from like Ruby 7 to Ruby, and moving from one model family to another is like moving programming language, right? And it's like it's interesting that wasn't obvious 18 months ago to a lot of the industry. Still isn't, I think, to a lot of people, and it has all these consequences about like evals, for example. How do you move quickly? Because you want to be able to move back to the idea, like, I think speed is the velocity is the most important thing. And being able to, how do you move quickly to capitalize on new opportunities? How do you know what to eval, what to look for?
Yeah, I think also you mentioned like the early days of the web and how anything's possible. It also, I think, means like the optimization function has to be learning. Like, it's really at every turn, you're like, what can I learn about this? And then using that in aggregate to build up intuition so that you can start to have a sense of where things are headed or what you can take advantage of in a, hopefully like an upcoming model, but also just upcoming like technological trends in general. And I think that is like just the most exciting part. It feels like starting over in some ways, but also with like 20 years of experience behind you. And I find it like really fun to just be in this environment with people learning constantly.
Fun, definitely is, yeah. Experimentation, right? Like the analogy again for us was we tried to build Fin early on. Like probably we had our first prototypes of Fin in January 2023 when GPT 3.5 was the state of the art, and we were trying to build this product envelope, and 3.5 just wasn't there, right? But it didn't have the instruction following capability or the reasoning capability that we needed. But we knew what it was lacking. We now knew, because we'd experimented with it and we tried it and we'd done all this, we knew what we were looking for in a model that would be good enough. So we got early access to GPT-4 and we're like, aha, this is it. This is what we needed. And we were able to launch Fin on GPT-4 launch day as a result. And if you aren't like experimenting, pushing the boundaries, exploring this, you won't build up that intuition, the understanding about what kind of evolution do you want to have for your product, need to have for your product in this space. And you're just going to move a lot slower as a result. Okay. So what is design? What is the job of design? I want to move into that, I suppose, around I'm very proud of the product we've built. We're getting very good at building AI products. All of our systems and processes for building AI products are pretty good. We are unsatisfied with how we are leveraging AI for building product generally, like how much faster it can make engineering and all that kind of stuff. We're doing okay, but I feel like we're barely tapping the potential here. We did an initiative this year, a few months ago, 2x. We are determined to 2x to double our productivity per R&D employee by the end of this financial year, and we're measuring that by useful pull requests per head, which is a flawed metric in a bunch of dimensions, but it's really useful in a few. And it's getting us a question like, what are the jobs here, right? Like, there's a few things, So, obviously, engineers are using things like Cursor or Claude Code to make themselves more productive in what they're doing. They're getting better and better at that. The better ones are starting to leverage, the idea of, give an agent a task and like come back to it later. We're having agents do autonomous things, like if we have a refactorer agent that will identify that a feature flag is dead and autonomously open the pull request to fix the feature flag. All these things are going to juice the stats, but it's going to make the product better. And where it gets more interesting is design. So we have now required designers to start coding. So now, again, it's going to juice the numbers, right? Like, we're going to have more pull requests per head because now there's heads that never ship pull requests before now that are now shipping pull requests. But the second order effect, right? The second order effect of the designer now who see something that could be better, and instead of opening an issue and convincing somebody to work on it and the engineer finding time to prioritize that, they're just enabled to go and fix it themselves. And the second order effect of the empowerment they have to do that, but also the quality of the product gets so much better, so much faster as a result. Again, it's like these things that we've always been capacity constrained, all the things that we would hope to do that we never had the capacity to do, we can now do. So yeah, I'm really interested to hear from you guys about how should we be leveraging AI more effectively? How are you guys leveraging AI?
Well, to be frank, I think we're still learning, and we're trying to figure out what are the various techniques to use here. But I would say we are also working hard to get our designers into our code base and have them run with it and make a set of changes that are appropriate for them to sort of unblock themselves, right? Like our goal here is to basically accelerate, maybe not 2x, maybe we should really look at that.
We actually, the biggest criticism we got about 2x is that's, if you really believe all the stuff you're saying about AI, that's surely not enough, right? But it's no, we're taking it seriously. We really, we're going to double our throughput. We're going to double our throughput by the end of this year. We're just taking it very, very seriously.
The thing that makes me laugh about this is probably last December. No, it was a little earlier than that. So maybe coming up on a year ago, I get all the expense reports that I got to approve, and it came through, and one person had an expense report for Cursor, and I was like, it's $14 or whatever, I'm going to approve it, and I was like, I think this should go to security, they got to review it, you got to do all that, and then the next week I got 7 of these expense reports, and I was like, all right, I got to really catch up with security. And the third week, it had graduated to purchase order level, where it was hundreds of people. And this is 12 months ago, and now we're all right, now we expect people to be doing way more than what they were doing at that point. And I mean, there have been some markers for me, some milestones along the way where I think I heard someone telling one of our interns over the summer in a polite way, well, before you actually submit this PR, why don't you actually run it through AI and see have Claude look at your PR and give you some feedback first. And they said it in a polite way. It wasn't don't bring me this, it was, but it was one of those moments where you could see the next generation was always going to do that going forward. There'll never be a moment where they don't have that sort of pre-check on their own. And then I think one of the groups that's pushed us the hardest, frankly, is, in a good way again, is our growth marketing team. Any an enterprise SaaS company is going to have a growth marketing team that spends a lot of time on SEO, but they also now are going to spend a lot of time on sort of all types of engine optimization, whether that is answer engine optimization or search engine optimization or whatnot. And to see what they've done with generating assets using Google's products like the Nano Banana and other models, and just how quickly they were empowered to do much, much more and come up with alternate versions of landing pages, and no way our small but mighty engineering team could keep up with that. And that's something where I think the 2x is a great initiative, and what it does is sort of shine a spotlight on where's the next bottleneck going to be. Because someone's going to become 5x, 10x more productive, and then someone else who maybe wasn't quite taking the challenge seriously is going to become the bottleneck and have to do the same.
Yeah, definitely. Well, part of the motivation for us, there's Des Traynor, one of our co-founders, talks about the idea of this is a useful metaphor for all things in this AI space. If you get excited by the opportunity, you can take your 500-person R&D org and have them be as effective as a 1,000-person R&D org. It's incredible. Get excited about this, right? So if you get motivated by that, great. If you get motivated by fear, a 20-person startup is not going to be able to do the same stuff that a 500-person R&D org could have done a few years ago. So if you don't do it, there's a huge opportunity for you, and you'll be very successful. And if you don't, you're dead. Get moving.
I just want to point, getting back to what you mentioned earlier about, I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, but being clear-eyed about the actual facts on the ground. Things are happening. They are changing. And whether that is a tailwind or a headwind to you does not matter. Like, these things are changing, and the sooner you internalize that and accept it and realize these are the new rules of the game and this is what we have to play in, the better off you are.
Yeah, for us, like an example was, Fin itself, right, is disruptive to our like historical seats-based model for customer service. But coming up in a year ago now, we released Fin for any help desk, right? You don't have to be an Intercom customer to use Fin, which is just, it was just an obvious consequence of like, this is happening. Whether we're the people doing it or not, it's happening, so we should be the people to do it. You talked about, so designers are coding now, the tools that you guys are providing. Should engineers be designing? Is that also what should happen?
I think engineers should be designing. One, our engineers should be designing so that they gain empathy for what that process looks like. But also, any builder should be able to unblock themselves at any phase of the process. And one of the things that I have been really impressed with is people generating PRDs. Like, they may not have been someone who wrote a PRD before, but they can provide enough natural language and artifacts to an LLM to then get back a PRD, and then use that to then go to maybe even a different model and get a design out of it, and then sort of think through, okay, now can you actually break down the task for me? And I think we joke about the different role, or we don't joke, we talk about the roles and the role blending. And I think we've got people who are much farther along on this journey than us, and that there are now like solo entrepreneurs out there who are doing like an entire PDE plus like GA function of a company, and it's one person, and they are leveraging LLMs at every turn and running as fast as they can, trying to like get to a problem and solve it before other people do.
Yeah, we've always prioritized hiring generalists. Our engineering role, the predominant role we hire is a product engineer. So one of the things we're looking for there is just, it used to be a differentiator for us, and now it's just table stakes, right? Of the idea we were looking for people who, code, shipping was engineering was a means to an end, the end being like customer impact. And they would, the kind of people who, might have been a startup founder, might have been an early employee, they're an engineer, but they could probably get a job as a PM at a lot of companies, right? Like that idea of like the fundamental core thing of being able to understand and articulate the customer problem and work with other people to be able to create that those folks are super powered now, I think, and there's this convergence of like the best designers were always designers who like had empathy and understanding of engineering constraints, and the best engineers were vice versa, PMs, and it's all converging towards one generalist type role, I think.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right, and I think one of the things that I always, when recruiting would come to me about what I was looking for in hiring product engineers, I was always looking for flexibility and resilience, because whatever you're working on today, chances are that's going to change over the next 30, 60, 90 days. You need to be flexible about that and look at what problems are coming and how different solutions, but also resilient to it. And some of my best friends are infrastructure engineers. So no shade to my infrastructure friends here. But oftentimes infrastructure engineers would really get like married to the code and to the algorithm, and no one else is ever seeing this but their other friends who are like looking at the PR, but they were like, this is the way it's going to be. And the best product engineers are like, I could throw this away tomorrow and make it better. I just want to see if this works, if I'm on the right path. And I think like that approach that the code is it's almost opaque, it's an implementation detail to you, is something that will serve people really well moving forward.
Yeah, I do think there's like specialists are important, right? And they're almost like
absolutely. I love all the specialists out there.
Super powered now as well, right? Like your stuff is becoming the value you're adding is becoming even more differentiated. Mobile was always the one for me. Mobile engineers, mobile developers, very tied not just to like mobile development being the thing, but a particular platform. I just like love. I remember there was an engineer, 9 years ago, an engineer who started at Intercom who was like, I want to be the world's best Android engineer. And I love the ambition, I love the energy, but like, imagine I told you a few years earlier, I was like, I want to be the world's best Symbian engineer. Like, he had no idea what Symbian was, right? And like this is, fall in love with solving problems, not the specific technology that you're using to solve those problems. And like, that's all the more so now, right? All the more so with AI. Do you guys use so obviously you use Figma to build Figma. Are there other tools you're using, other technologies? Do you guys use Cursor and stuff as well?
Yeah, so our stack is we've got Cursor in there. We've got some people using Windsurf. We've got a fair group of people using Claude. We want to I wouldn't say let 1,000 flowers bloom, but we want people to experiment and within reason and actually come back with as much as they can learn and leverage across the board. So I think what we have done has been, again, to be just very frank, I think we've been fairly unstructured in this approach. And while there's certainly benefits to that, I think being unstructured means people who are willing to take the initiative will really run with it and do things. And again, we've been fortunate in that that's something we've screened for and hired. But it also means if you're unstructured, if someone's sort of in their way, it's stuck in their way, they're going to be in their way. They're not going to nothing's going to nudge them other than seeing what their coworkers do. So I think there's a benefit to having structured approaches to this to get more and more people to try different things, and then also really giving them access to as many tools as possible.
Yeah, we're doing the same thing, and paving the cow paths as they develop. Making it easier to do the things that have proven to be successful while creating a lot of space for people to experiment. Okay, Chet, how are we doing for time?
We're technically done, but last question, Jordan.
Okay, well, maybe I was what's next for Figma? Maybe what are things you're excited about coming next?
Yeah, so I think really this role blending is the thing that's got us most excited, and that we've really got a platform that lets you go from ideation and brainstorming with FigJam all the way through presenting this via slides, to doing design, to using prompt to app, to getting to production with dev mode and sites. And we really want to be there for the entire journey and help people to take their ideas to production as quickly as possible.
Thank you very much. Okay. Everybody give Marcel a round of applause.
Thank you.
All right. This is probably our favorite time of the evening, so we'll take audience questions. And if I see your hand, I'll make a mental note of it and pass you over the mic. So we'll start here in the front.
Yeah, in the current world where everyone, big and small, have access to the same foundation models, other than distribution, are there any technical moats that a company like Figma or Intercom has compared to an incumbent? Any technical moats?
I think I'm going to tee this one up for you and hopefully not steal your thunder, but I think building on top of one foundation model is probably an initial path, but then really figuring out what of the data exhaust from your users you can leverage to do further post-training is going to be, I think that is going to be a moat for a lot of organizations. And that, very clearly, that lends itself to those who have massive user bases and can get that data exhaust. There's certainly other ways as well, further fine-tuning and post-training, but I think that is going to be a very efficient way for large organizations or large organizations within a domain to do even more.
Yeah, I agree. I at a higher level, I'd say, make sure you're solving a problem that matters, a deep problem. And I think I'll take customer service as an example. Again, it seems superficially easy. There were 1,000. You or I could build a question answering bot in a couple of hours this afternoon. The delta between that and a product that actually solves the problem for the customer is humongous. It's huge. I think building the domain expertise in the problem you're solving, building the capability to evaluate and move fast on iterating towards solving that problem, that is moving fast by leveraging the best of the technology available to us is, it's a gingerbread man strategy. Run as fast as you can. You'll never catch me. I'm the gingerbread man. It's a little bit that. It's hard work and you got to keep going, but it's really ultimately the only defensible mode long term. But to the spirit of your question, something like Fin, for example, it's not a single prompt to an LLM. There's about 27 different subsystems, different prompts, different models. We're on our fourth. The product's 2 years old, 2 and a bit years old. We're on our fourth major architecture of that, And the models that we use everything from open source, BERT type models for like simple parts of the system, through to some of the hardest prompts we have. We use Claude Sonnet as like our main model. We use OpenAI models, but we started training our own models as well, and had real success and real edge in that using the data that we have. Like the Fin, we get to cheat a bunch, right? So Fin is solving a job that both our customers and our customers care about. Like, the user is coming and asking Fin for support on something, and is going to tell us whether they got that thing solved or not. So we get a lot of signal from that. A lot of like the incentives are aligned around Fin doing a good job there, and we use that to inform some of the models we've done for like a retriever, a re-ranker, summarizer type models. And those have there's two aspects to that. It has had real positive product impact. It has improved like the Fin, when Fin came out on GPT-4 launch day, the average resolution rate was 25%. It's now 65%. The average customer gets 65% of their volume resolved by Fin. And it's just like relentlessly increasing by an average like 1% every month. And it's an accumulation of like our AI group, which is now like 60 people, get very excited by like a 0.3% like basis point changes to the resolution rate, and it's just compounding like hundreds or thousands of small changes. But the key, what I'm not trying to tell you is, it's the secret sauce is in a prompt or a model or even tuning your own models. It's in the machine that builds the machine. It's the capability to understand do you understand the domain? Do you understand what success looks like? Are you able to evaluate and move fast towards creating an ever-improving product? Thanks for the question.
We got one over here.
Hi, I'm Get. I'm a builder for more than 15 years. So in building now, so reimagining the building process with AI. And I've been curious, have Figma thought about like what is the format of product specification, PRDs, in a multi-model world? Is this like Figma screenshots going to be the single source of truth of what product does, and AI kind of transform images into spec, into user flows? Or it's still first text and then design and then code, but like reimagining altogether, it just adds friction, and it's better to have single source of truth for product guys, designers, and engineers. And if these roles emerge, what's your like instinct on like what the format gonna be? Is like visual format that is easy for humans to verify and check like, is this like make sense, or it's not gonna be the source of truth? Thanks.
Yeah, so I don't think there's necessarily like one format to rule them all. I think all of these will exist. That said, I will say I think at some point 40% of our inputs to make were screenshots. So people were definitely using that. The MCP server that we launched has taken off in a way that we were chatting about this before, about just MCP as a protocol. I had not imagined it would take off that fast. And it's because you can do things like point to a frame in Figma and then drop that link into Cursor and it's going to build it for you, right? Because the tooling that's there. And I think my intuition here is that it'll go to the path of least resistance. Like, it's not that developers are lazy, it's that we are efficient, or we strive to be efficient, and as a result, we will try and do the thing that takes the least amount of effort. But that said, the data exists in terms of specification in many formats that's out there, and like additional context that might not have made its way into a PRD before, but is easy to drag and drop into a chat box, is also going to be like relevant. So I think it's the future's multimodal in that respect.
One thing I would say is, I don't think back to the early days of the web, it's the Wild West. We have no idea what the right end state is going to be here. I think, like if you think back to like blink tags and marquee tags and stuff in the early, like I think it's going to be very interesting to see how all of these concepts about what is design, what is a product, is going to change over the next number of years.
Yeah, I think there's also like a little bit of falling back to like Unix principles with like do one job particularly well and then allow yourself to be chained to other jobs is like, that is going to be something that I think if we can, as an industry, like stick with that pattern, be in good shape.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the talk and the insights. Ankur, I work at Rippling. I had two questions. First is more around the experiences. So, and in terms of both Fin and Figma, I'm not sure chat is going to be the universal interface to AI. So what are the types of experiences you are observing in your sort of roles, which are evolving, that we should also be, looking at?
Yeah, I love that. Can I take this one? Yeah. We were talking about the modalities of Fin, right? So like Fin, just on the surfaces people are used to today, right? Fin operates very differently on email than it does on a chat, than it does on voice, because people expect different things, right? If you ask a follow-up question on voice call, you're probably going to get an answer. It'll be nice, snappy, back and forth. Because very different on email. You kind of can't just ask a quick follow-up question, right? So like Fin does well on these things. But what we don't have yet, which I'm excited about, is the idea of like truly multimodal experiences, where imagine you're talking with Fin, you're like asking questions, and Fin is able to show you what relevant things to what you're talking about. So I need a better example, but imagine you're saying, hey, do you have these sneakers in size 13? And Fin's like, no, we don't. Verbally, no, we don't. But we have the red ones in 13. Do you want them? It's like, I don't know. But if Fin can show you the red ones while you're talking, like that's a way better experience. That's just the beginning of I think the ability to have very different experiences, very much richer experiences, adaptable experiences. Like I think it will have adaptable UI creating itself in real time. But the other side for Fin is the ability to interact with the product that you have, not just in like a chat window, but the idea that already if you ask Fin, people expect that in customer service, the person clearly articulates their problem, and then you need to solve that. It's not they say like, this is broken. You're like, what's broken? Please tell me more, Susan. But Fin, because it's like often in context, if you're doing the messenger, it's able to infer from context what this is, right? And that's good. So Fin can do a better job because it can do a good job of that. But the next step would be for Fin to say, yes, it's broken because you haven't turned on that thing, and point at the thing that it means, right? That kind of more fluid experience, I think, might be a future for us.
Yeah, I think the experiences are certainly set to evolve beyond chat box. I think that the input box it's the banner ad of this platform shift. And you will see eventually we'll get to feeds, we'll get to something different, and it'll be much more interesting. I think like one of the things for Figma is that some things that it's not always the case that natural language is the fastest way to do something. Right, we have a lot of direct manipulation built into our tools. That's the domain we're in, and oftentimes that's actually the fastest way. So for us, one of the things is, do we go back and forth between this sort of prompt to experience as well as direct manipulation? Do we bring that over? So all that we're playing with to see.
I had a follow-up question more around the engineering culture. So in Rippling, I'm also driving some of that initiative because I do feel to build AI experiences, you have to use AI yourself. So how are you, and what I'm observing is, obviously there are curious innovators who are jumping ahead, and there are the messy middle who are sort of waiting and watching and picking up things. So how are you driving more adoption? Like you talked about 2x productivity, and you talked about in your organizations that everybody is at not just 2x, but 5x, 10x, and not just from individual, but maybe team productivity and as well. Are there things you are doing which you can share? That would be great to know.
I think you might have a better answer to this, but I'm going to some tactical things we have. PMs did an on-site recently and just took a day and built a product, right? It's like, hey, you got to build a product today using something like Figma Make, and you're going to pitch it to Des Trader, one of our co-founders, try to sell your startup to him at the end of the day. Just get a sense of what is possible there. And one of our designers in our coding, one of our principal designers has shipped 2 products, 2 side hustle products in the last 6 months, just scratching itches he had, But like simple tactical things, like we have a Slack channel where people just share, like here's what we're learning, here's what this worked for me, you know, and that's working for, you know, beyond engineering into like, you know, marketing and sales or comparing those things. In engineering culture, like getting people at Intercom to like try this stuff has not been a problem. To get people to be effective is like people are stressing it. Like a common thing is like, hey, I want to be really good at this, but I also need to meet my deadline on this thing. So like there's a sunk cost thing. So we're paving the cow paths for a lot of people and giving them best practices and putting as much as we can into, like we're doing things like, you know, hey, it turns out the LLMs do a better job at popular frameworks than less popular frameworks. So we're rewriting, we have this lovely Ember.js front end that we're killing and replacing with React just because it's easier for the LLMs to write, you know, make it easier. The thing that's like, I think the next frontier for like code review, like what is code review in this era, right? If you have, so you know, the output that you're review, like I've used an AI to help me write this code, and I've reviewed it, and I've had another AI give me feedback on it already, and now I'm opening a code review for you to review. That's like valuable, right? But what are you reviewing at that point? You're reviewing the output, and that's fine. But what I'm not getting feedback on, like what is code review for? A code review is for making sure that there's consistency and quality in the code, sure, but it's also for training and like learning and improving engineering. But a big part of my job now is working out how do I work with Claude, and nobody gives me feedback on that, right? Nobody's giving me help on how to use the LLM. So something we've started experimenting with is like with the PR, attach your Claude Code session and like review that as well, so you can get feedback on like how are you actually using these tools in the whenever, you know, how can we do that as an automated loop where, you know, we can say this code that was produced was bad. Why was it bad? Was it the prompt was bad? Was the context we gave was bad? Like, how do we automate that process? That's like a newer thing for us.
Yeah, very similar. I'd say like the code review is actually a really interesting one, just because earlier today there's a bit of a debate about whether or not you want AI to generate your pull request description, because it does a good job of describing what it has done, but you can actually divine that by looking at it, where maybe a part of your, as someone put, I'm going to butcher this, but someone on the team put forth, your PR description is like a note to your future self and to other people about what you had intended to do and the context in which you were doing it. And the AI can't derive that for you, right? So there's almost like you've got to provide that for a different reason than maybe a diff or a description of what has happened.
One other thing on culture, actually. So I'm obsessed with velocity, right? Like we are, what helps us learn faster, move faster. One place that can hurt us at Intercom is we are very eager to get things in front of customers. Sometimes in the experimental phase, it's important to give the folks experimenting space to go down like dead ends, and for it to be okay that they like spent 3 weeks working on something that was the wrong idea. Because if you optimize purely for, you know, efficiency, you're going to end up getting stuck in local maximas. You're going to find a very great solution within this space and actually miss there's a much bigger opportunity here. Back to the no priors thing, like challenge your assumptions. There might be a totally different way of approaching this problem. So that's something we certainly within our AI group we have to keep precious is the space to fail and experiment and not be efficient. If that makes sense.
Hi, I think this is around Fin. I mean, Fin is more of a horizontal product, right? And over the discussion also something that emerged was going vertical or having a deeper domain, you know, mode sort of brings out a better outcome or reliability in terms of products. So did at any point of time, you know, did you have thoughts about going vertical, or how do you balance building a horizontal product and building reliability around that? I mean, what are the ways to do that?
Yeah, interesting. I think customer service is a vertical problem. I think the idea of, and actually, like, you know, spoilers for our event next week in New York. Like, it's more like it is the first of customer experience jobs. So like think about, our vision for Fin is to give every customer this expert, concierge level, infinitely patient partner the whole way through the life cycle of them as a customer, from before they decided to pick your product to being successful with the product to solving your problems, etc. That is like I think that's a vertical problem. I think that I think customer service is a deeper problem than we might realize. There are the specifics to different industries, for example, like doing like customer service for finance or doing customer service for healthcare, for example. We have found trying to do, like, for better or worse, we're probably one of our philosophies is we're trying to do the hard things, like run into the wall as fast as we can. So, for example, we have a self-serve product. Like Fin is you can sign up for Fin and get use Fin. That isn't the default. Most of our competitors are purely sales-led, and are even helping craft the system prompts per customer. Some of that is happening for bigger customers. It is much harder to build a product that will work self-serve. And similarly, trying to build a product, maybe it's foolish, but trying to build a product that works really well for a software company and for fintech and for a healthcare company. So far, it's been successful for us, but it forces us to get good at the general job of customer service. Maybe another way of saying what I'm saying is like Fin should turn up to work on day one as an experienced customer service rep. They've done, worked in the industry for 10 years, know what they're doing about how to do customer service. And as we do it for more and more companies and more industries, it's turning up as an expert in customer service for a company like yours as well. It's like, oh, I worked in a company like you last year, and that's worked well for us to be able to be like a general approach to a specific job.
Thank you.
We have time for one more, so over there. All right. Sorry, Jordan, sent me over there. I apologize.
We'll do two more.
Two more? Okay, I'll start here first. All right.
You both highlighted that roles in building software has been becoming more blended within your org. How are you keeping an eye on quality at scale, and are your metrics changing over time for measuring quality changing over time?
Yeah. So again, I think Figma has a really good answer to this. I'll let you do it. But for us, again, I'll use Fin as an example. Like the idea of resolution rate, right? We want to do. The more that Fin can resolve for you, the better product it is, the higher ROI it is for you. But how it does those resolutions really matters. We don't want to accidentally build what we call a deflection engine, where Fin is resolving the conversation by actually annoying the customer so they just go away and leave you alone, right? We don't want to do that. So we put in a bunch of, this is our core product now. This is what quality means for us. Is Fin doing a good job? Is it doing, high CSAT, nice experiences, good quality experiences? So we obsess about that. We have all kinds of metrics about how to evaluate that, and I talked about the idea of the AI group makes thousands of changes that incrementally improve the resolution rate. All of those things have checks and balances in them around is the product also getting better in the round? Is Fin everything from latency through to CSAT through to answer length through to is it following the intended tone correctly? All that kind of stuff. So we're trying to automate those things. I know you're asking for a more general quality thing, but this is for us, it's find the thing what does quality mean for you, and instrument that and track that and get obsessive about it.
Yeah, I'd say in our make products or as we move more into the new products, instrumentation is everything, and sort of having dashboards and instrumentation and data science, because we actually spend a lot of time. You can get so far with thumbs up, thumbs down. But there's a lot more going on that you can really actually check in and see.
All right, last one, guys.
Hey, my question is around knowledge, help, articles, knowledge base, however you use it interchangeably. At least for Fin, it forms such a crucial layer for it to actually answer questions very accurately. What do you see the future of this being? You also mentioned that, Fin could probably even point to a UI element rather than like trying to, answer in text. So do you see like knowledge bases completely going away? Like LLMs are always still text-based. So how is that going to look?
Yeah, I don't think, if you think about the job of a knowledge base, it's trying to externalize your domain knowledge. It's trying to externalize your understanding of your business. So I don't think that's going away. And the way Fin works on this is, Fin will, if it gives if there's a topic that it's doing a bad job resolving, it might ask on Slack and be like, hey, what should the answer to this be? And then incorporate that into the knowledge. But it also does things like it will then watch, like, hey, if I didn't give a good answer to this, what did the human then end up saying? And Fin will suggest changes to content. So Fin will say, like, hey, I'm doing a bad job of this topic because I'm missing this article. Here's the article you should write, and I'll draft the article for you. Or I'm doing a bad job of this topic because this part of the article is very confusingly written. I think here's the diff. Like, literally, it will show you a diff. And all the human needs to do is like accept the diff, and immediately Fin will get better at that. So I think the idea of this is the beginnings of this, but I think the idea of like externalizing knowledge, externalizing the canonical understanding of your product, or it could be generalized to like the canonical understanding of your code base or something. I think those things will exist, but I think they will be more malleable. They'll evolve and change more quickly than they have in the past, rather than relying on a human to sit down and, which they never do. The human sitting down and editing the article never actually happens, which is the biggest problem. I hope that answers your question. Excellent, good. That is a good primer for. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out here. Can you give a round of applause again to Marcel? Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Jump to Jordan as well. Thank you.